So my name is Ryan McGarghan. I'm an owner of a company called Synergy Solutions. I'm an embedded CFO, a SEPA VGA, a PNP, a CNG, and an EOS expert. What does that all mean? I spend a lot of time reading books, right? So embedded CFO, we do fractional CFO work, except we're embedded on the C-suite of businesses with $25 million in annual sales or less. So between 500,000 and 25 million. We are EOS experts, that's Entrepreneur Operating System. I don't know if anyone's read the book Traction, but we are the experts in that and helping design the financial aspect of those plans. SEPA is a Certified Exit Planning Advisor, and I am, there's about 13 different designations for SEPA. I'm a VGA, which is a Value Growth Advisor. A PFP, I'm a Profit First Professional. I'm one of 300 firms in the United States that have that designation, and also the only one in Colombia. And then CNG, and it means Certified Nice Guy. So it's amazing what you can do. Who knows somebody who would like to sell their business at some point in time? Okay, almost all of us, right? The truth of the matter is, about 4 of us who raised our hands, those are the amount of people that will actually be able to sell their business. Who knows somebody who would like to sell their business as much as they possibly can? The truth of the matter is, about 1 of us would be able to do that. How many people know somebody who want to exit their business and sometime in the future and actually have a plan? Anyone? Okay. Do they have a written plan? Are they executing their plan? Again, 0. Well, that's why we're here, is to introduce you to the topic of what exit planning is and what's involved in it. Essentially, exit planning overview is increase the wealth of the owner by increasing the value of the business. 80% of small business owners' wealth is trapped in their business. 20% is what they hold in their IRAs and their insurance products and those kind of things. And all of you play in a very important role, especially wealth advisors here, is that you're a big important advisor to help us extract that wealth, okay? 80% of SEPAs are designated through wealth management. There's about 5 of us that do what I do, so we're kind of a big fish in a small pond. Unfortunately, it's kind of new to everybody and how we all can play. For the one thing is that the wealth and the prosperity of business owners so that they can live their best life afterwards, right? Exit planning starts now. It doesn't start in 5 years when I want to think about it. It doesn't do that because it's just good business strategy. And what we do is we build leadership teams, we build a team of folks all rowing in the same direction. And so whether you're going to face unforeseeable events, or if you want to make sure that your child is succeeding in 10 years, we set them up for success. It also allows business owners to have the business run itself and not be run by its business. How many people do we know that actually take pride, that are business owners that say, I work 40 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours a week, and I don't take a paycheck, right? Well, we stop that cycle right here, and we say, you know, you should have a team of folks that actually care about what you're doing, that want you to prosper so that you can go on vacation and come back and say, great job. The first leg of the stool is the personal. This is the most important step that we go through. We want to make sure that the owner is ready to exit. 75% of owners who have exited 2 years later regret it. One of the statistics about not being able to sell their baby, their business, is that right when they're about to sign the dotted line, about 75% actually back out of the deal. Why? Because they're not ready. And that's what we do, is we make sure that the owner is ready and able to exit their business. The second step is personal financial. This is where a lot of you folks come in, but essentially it's making sure that the personal finances of the owner is taken care of. But we want to make sure that they're able to retire, that they're able to buy their own private island instead of timeshare a condo with somebody else, right? That's the goal. We're all in this game. And the last one is the business valuation. That's where I come into play. that's where a lot of people come into play, but this is where I swim, is essentially we need to drive the wealth of the business up so that the owner will have managers like you to be able to manage $10 million and not $2 million for them, right? And so that's what we do, is we make sure that when we grab and drive up the business valuation in terms of sales, profit, EBITDA, valuations, whatever it's going to be, but also we make it so that it's attractive enough to sell. So where do you come into play? Well, the personal folks, it's friends and family, trusted advisors. So this is where we take the 40, 60, 80 hours and we say, if you're going to stay at home and you're going to drink all day and you're going to play golf all day, you're headed towards divorce in 2 years, right? You're going to drive each other crazy. So what do we do with this? We have to have a plan. We have to make sure that the owner is ready. Now, this is also part of our evaluation that we'll get into, is why it's very significant and important to do that, not only to not back out of deals, but also making sure that the seller knows and understands the plan. So that's where you all live, in the personal financial. So you have your wealth managers, financial advisors, estate planning attorneys, some CPAs fall in here, coaches, so that our folks can live the life that they're meant to, all their hard work, all the risks that they take in owning a business, running a business, penny pinching, providing jobs for their employees. That all comes right here, and making sure they have enough. And we talk about something called a wealth gap, right? And a wealth gap is essentially that you need $10 million to retire in the lifestyle that you've become accustomed to, right? And you want to continue doing those things, but you only have $2 million. So how do we get there? Well, we need to decrease the wealth gap. And imagine, as money managers and financial advisors, you have now $10 million on assets for your clients instead of $2, right? That helps you out as well. And then we have problems when it comes from $2 million to $10 million. Taxes. Well, do we want to keep it in our pockets, in our clients' pockets, or do we want to give it to Uncle Sam, right? So we have to deal with, and as a lot of you do, with the tax planning or estate planning attorneys, and also making sure that our children are set up with trusts, right? Making sure that our real estate is in trust and protected with liabilities. All this kind of stuff feels together, right? But if we just focus on one of these legs, the personal, we don't get there with the second leg. They're completely different, right? Or we go back to the personal is, I'm going to live forever. Baby boomers, their business is their identity, right? That's what they do. That's why you have 80-year-olds going to work. Work if you love it, but it's not your identity. Now, a lot of millennials, a lot of Gen Xers, Zers, they're actually getting into the game of buying other businesses and selling them and flipping them or making them their cash cows, right? It's a new generation. It's the work to live, not live to work, right? Or the balance between life and work. That's what they're finding too. And we have to adapt our strategies to them. But it's nice to have that. It's nice to have that. But if you can't get it out of the business, it doesn't mean anything. That $2 million wealth gap will stay will be $2 million. It won't grow to 10. So we call this the value gap. We increase the business value so that maybe the business is worth $2 million itself, but we need to get 10 out of it. That's where we have to do. And that's where I live. So you have your CFOs, you have your leadership team, you have CPAs, you have tax attorneys, you have your coaches are a big thing in here, right, amongst others. So how do we increase that value to get better? Yeah. The last thing I do is cut people. What we do is plan. In order for you to get from 2 to 10 million realistically, we need at least 3 to 7 years to implement. We need time. And what we need to do is put in processes in place, a good leadership team, a good advisory team, and slowly but surely we start seeing sales increase and profits increase without having to cut excess fat. Boomers, at the end of the day, they're reluctant to sell, and when they do, without a good plan, they say, well, if I shed 50 people in the last year, my valuation would go up by $5 million, right? But if we had actually planned for it, you could have kept all those families with a paycheck and food in their mouth and still gotten there. That's the difference, right? But with boomers, the biggest thing is going over here, right? Because a lot of them have been working with people for 30 years and want to do the right thing by them, right? And a lot of them, if they sell it beyond their imagination, they actually give back millions of dollars to their employees, right? Because they understand that they too were going through this hardship, right? So we have all these folks working on each one of their legs, but are they rowing in the right direction, in the same direction? Do they all know all the objectives of what the owner wants, the end game, from the business perspective, from the financial planning perspective, and from their personal perspective? So we need somebody like football, right? You have a wide receiver, you have a tight end, you have offensive line, defensive line, you have assistant coaches, head coaches. But what's the one thing every football team has? A quarterback. Sometimes good quarterbacks are better than their head coaches, right? Was it Brady or Belichick? So I was a financial advisor. I started out with Edward Jones, had my own office, right? And I learned very quickly that I'm not a very good salesperson because I can't find the need of the client, and I'm more analytical. So I started on this path, 25 years of accounting and finance for small businesses. But I understand this, and I understand what I don't know, and that's the most important part. When we're talking about the business valuation, my job is very specific. Grow the business, increase the value so that the owner can maximize that, but also one of the first things we do is preserve the business. Does it have enough insurance? Does it have key man insurance? Do we have policies and procedures? Can we scale it, right? That's not even just a marketing tool. There's actually a thing that happens, right? Do we have the leadership team? So when I go over and take over, say during the EOS side, 1 out of 5 leadership team members are usually not on the team in 6 months. And the reason is that to get the owner out of the business and to have the business grow itself, you have to have a strong leadership team. They have to trust each other. They have to have good conflict. They have to do those kind of things, right? And usually there's one person who fights back because we also hold each other and ourselves accountable. And that's what the quarterback does too. What do you mean you didn't do the tax plan? It was due a month ago. We need this to move forward, right? So usually one person who pushes back or doesn't like it, throws tantrums, is somebody that doesn't need to be on the leadership team because they're hiding something, right? But once you have a good leadership team and everybody understands the plan and they're all on board, now you have the business rowing in that direction. And it takes sometimes years, 3, 7, 10 years to get everybody on the same track, right? Now, and I'll tell a little bit about the success story. We use a valuation. It's an informal valuation. I'm going to stress that, informal, because I'm going to get to a horror story, right? And what we do is we have the owner and any shareholders, majority, whatnot, answer questionnaires. And we do on the personal readiness, am I ready to retire, right? What am I going to do with that wealth? How much do I need to live, right? What do I want to do with my kids? And then we look at the business as itself, operations, sales and marketing, customer clusters, vendors, how strong you are financially, how you compare to your peers, right? And we do all this stuff, and we look at it. And the one thing that we find is that and we actually do the questionnaires as well based upon data, right? Is the owners are always saying, my baby's beautiful. I'm going to get 10 times. I'm going to sell my $1 million business for 10 million, right? How many parents have said their baby is beautiful, but, right? And that's what we kind of find out. Some of them are great. Some of them are ready to sell now, if the owner's ready. Some of them take 3 to 7 to 10 years to get there. Then you have the formal valuation that gets done. So we've had a couple clients who say, I don't want to do the informal. I want to see how much my baby's worth. And then they spend $40,000 to get a valuation done. That could have been done informally, and we were right within the 90 percentile, right? And it also depends on who does your valuation, because some CPAs will value it on an asset base. Some people will do it on your free cash flow. It just depends on who's getting it done, right? And then they start setting expectations. So I was brought in to be the successor for the CFO, and it was a 5-year plan. They're in the trades business in New Hampshire, and I was working with the son to take over for his parents. I would be number 2, the numbers person. He's going to lead the charge. And they knew me personally, liked me, brought me in. No problems, except year 3. When's it going to happen? Mom and dad aren't ready. It's year 5 now. They get a valuation. It's through the roof. It's like $17 million, right? Son's like, Mom, Dad, can I borrow $17 million? I just don't have that lying around, right? Now he's doing all the work now, year 5. Mom and Dad are now enjoying themselves. So they're off. Son wants to pay this. Mom and Dad want to pay this, get this done, right? Then what happened in 2020? Pandemic. I'm not sure if you know this, but in the Northeast, construction or trade services went through the roof. They did commercial construction. All the libraries were closed. All the municipal buildings were closed. But guess what? They already had their funding. They were now going through these libraries and municipal buildings at twice as fast, because nobody was there to bother them and hinder their work. So 2021, sales go from 15 million to 18 million. They got PPP money, over $1 million tax-free, right? Mom and Dad, year 6 now, are saying, yeah, about that 5-year plan, let's let the money train keep coming for a while. So in 22, they buy a McMansion in Florida. Now the sales are like 20 million bucks, right? They're going from 15 to 20 in 2 years. And they're efficient. A lot of that's going right to them, right? 23, early 23 happens, and they decided that McMansion 1 wasn't good enough. They want to upgrade to McMansion 2, right? And now they're at 25 million. They jumped 10 million in about 3 years, okay? And a lot of that's going to their pockets. So that's year 9 of a 5-year succession plan. Son is getting more and more perturbed, right? He threatens to quit. I'm done. I've raised you from 15 to 25 million. I've done all these things. I want my due. So he gets a valuation done. Turns out, Mom and Dad got a valuation from somebody who wasn't licensed to give valuations. Their expectations were here. And at $25 million, Son got a valuation that was here. Finally, January 24th, parents exit and sell. They are now 10 years into a 5-year succession plan because Son decided to quit, because Thanksgiving got that awkward. That's the problem when we don't have a plan, or we don't have all 3 of our legs in tune. That's also why they were one of the statistics. We're ready to sell year 5. Oops, let's back out. I was not personally involved with this. I came in to consult for just a small project to make sure everything was kosher with this deal. And this is actually in New Hampshire. So working with an Edward Jones financial advisor who is a SEPA, actually introduced me into the SEPA world. And he's got a client, they have a butcher shop, and the client says, well, we're going to retire next year and close up the shop. He says, what are you talking about? Yeah, nobody wants to buy our shop. We're just going to close it up. We had a good life, you know, that kind of stuff. And he says, well, let me look into something for you, right? I know that you're going to retire next June. Fantastic. It's November, so give me some time. Part of this is finding the right people to buy your company and to sell your company, and we'll get into that, why the multiples are different. So he went out and found a mergers and acquisition person, or a business broker, as they're kind of interchangeable sometimes. There's like 250 specialties with these folks. It's like a CPA, right? CPAs, only 12% of them are actually tax experts that specialize in tax. The rest do audits and financial reviews and all that stuff and just do taxes on the side. That's why I will go to an EA, an enrolled agent, every day of the week, because all they think about, and I'm so glad they do because I don't, is taxes, right? They're the best tax planners and preparers in the world because that's all they do. I don't know about you, but I'd rather go to a specialist than a generalist. We've got a whole SUPA community, 6,000 strong, right, throughout the world. A lot of them are financial advisors, wealth advisors, right, and M&A and broker specialists. He found a buyer. They were hoping for $500,000. He said, I found a buyer. They're like, oh man, if we could get $500,000, we get $1 million. Got him $1 million, and they were going to shut the doors for zero or zero. Now, if you're a solopreneur on Etsy doing your thing in your mom's basement, chances are you're probably not going to sell your business. But about 99% of businesses will sell if we get these right. And when we do evaluation, we look at all these things and we say, you're a solo entrepreneur for Etsy, it's a waste of your time. Or actually, if you bring on a couple more employees in the next couple of years and we actually plan for it, we could take it from here to here. I met a guy in Panama who was in the construction business, did some projects for him as a fractional CFO, did some commission planning, that kind of stuff, and real easy. And then he says, he asked me, he's like, thinking about selling my business, I'm really burnt out. I said, okay, well, let's talk about it. How burnt out are you? Are we talking 10 years burnt out, or are we talking I'm going to shut my doors tomorrow burnt out? He's like, in the next couple of years. Well, I like to work in the 3-year range for a minimum, but let's see what we can do. So we started looking at his business, did the valuation, the informal one. Said, we're here, but I think we can get here. And how much time do we need? Because the more time we get, the longer the curve gets. 2 years. Okay, I can work with 2 years. We can do these things. Brought in it was very owner dependent and very vendor reliant. There was only a few vendors that did what it did. And I don't know about you, but the pandemic kind of shook up the supply chain, so we had to kind of make sure that that wasn't a risk for a potential buyer. So we worked on building up a leadership team, bringing in another salesperson, brought in a second salesperson because he was 50% of the sales. Now he's 20. Okay, good. So he took his $4 million company that was stagnant for the last 3 years, and in year one, after we started doing this, it went up to $5.5 million. Salespeople already paid for themselves. And what we did bring on the leadership team, myself as embedded, so I'm the financial person, we had the business person, we had his wife who is a half owner who was never in it saying, we need another voice here, and also you've had a salesperson for 10 years who's been running this thing when you're on vacation or in China or in Panama, that person needs to have a seat at the table, right? So now we went from 1 to 4, right? Soon after, the wife could drop out, right? Because she really didn't have that interest, but she did bring in a perspective that we didn't have when we needed it. But we needed really another voice. So this year, our planned exit, so this is now year 2, our planned exit hopefully is January 1st, because then you have the capital gains for 14 months, right, that you don't have to pay. However, we're not going to stop the deal in December, and that's where we think that the date is. By doing it and being less owner dependent, we didn't have 1 quarter, didn't have 2, but we had 3 potential sellers that we now have played off of each other. He still wants to be part of the business. He wants to sell 70% of the business, taking his chips off the table, right, and becoming something, and still having 30% of an organization that's larger than him. So he increased his value by $4 million. He also almost doubled his sales, and his profit tripled. He's going to sell 70%, so he's going to sell for $7 million, which is far more than what he thought. But that 30%, if our calculations are right, should actually be about $9 million by the time they sell. So he's going to sell the whole thing for $16 million because they want to keep him on for this. He's one of the experts in this field, and he also can sell a room, right? And so that's a wonderful success story. Now, if he would stay on for another 2 or 3 years, that valuation is now talking about $15 or $20 million. But he's happy with that. It's okay. He's burnt out. He wants to play in the sandbox for another couple years, build up his equity, and then take that $16 million and do whatever he wants to do in his second life. The third success story that I have for you is actually still ongoing. It is a company up in northern New York, upstate. We are on year 3 of a 10-year succession plan. So I've been working with them as an embedded CFO and an EOS person since day one. And so as of last year, we decided that it's time for a succession plan. And he wants his son to take over. So his son is now working in the mailroom, in accounting. He's doing every single job in that company and learning it like his father did, right? So that year 5 comes, so 2 years from now, we already have a good leadership team. We're going to be transitioning from dad's leadership team to son's leadership team, okay? He's gonna have his own folks. At year 10, with mentoring for the last 2 or 3 years of the new leaders, a new CFO is gonna take over. I'm leaving with dad, right? He's gonna have a new CFO, he's gonna have a new operations person, he's gonna have all these things. That it's his folks that have the tutorage for the last 3 to 5 years, depending on when they come on board for the leadership team. The success rate from going from one generation to the next is 40%. If we do it right, in which we will do it, that success rate will be in the 80 to 90% because you just never know, right? Going from generation, and we're laying the groundwork for when his kids take over, we're going to increase that success rate from 12% to 50%. We're going to quadruple that, right? But not everybody's dad, not everybody's grandpa, or they can sell it because we've got everything in place that has increased their value. So their sales have increased 20% and the profits have increased 30%, just by having a good leadership team. Another part of this is that we held a quarterbacking session. For the first time, we got everybody, there's 2 owners, a majority and a minority. They have wills up to date. They have trust now done. They actually have a financial advisor for the first time ever, right? So we brought them all in with their CPA, their CFO, who was also the quarterback. We all had a meeting for an hour and a half, went over this entire thing of how it is, went over their goals, their objectives. They have 2 different goals and objectives, right? And everyone's on the same page. They all had things that they had to do after the meeting. Some tidying up for estate planning, corporate books, whatever it is that had to happen. And we're reconvening every 3 months. And then once everybody's all done, we reconvene every 6, right? After the meeting, I asked one question. Was this insightful? Did you need to be in this meeting? And everyone said yes. We're so glad we're on the same page. That's what a good quarterback can do. We solve a lot of problems, a lot of issues that normally get glanced over or never get done, right? And it's funny is when you start asking those questions and solving those problems, you start asking different questions, right? Where everyone's saying, well, that's a great idea. We've never thought about this in the 10 years of existence, but if we actually put this in place, how good would we be? We talked about success stories. 2 years, we can get a good valuation. 10 years, we can set up for success. That's what we do. But in all cases, good exit planning, increase the sales, increase the value of the company, increase the profits. One thing I did not touch upon, when we're increasing our profits, right, increasing our sales, what happens to the owner's wealth? we start taking not $200,000, but $300,000, $500,000 out of the business a year in cash money. I don't know about you, but I like a lot of cash in the bank, or invested wisely, right? But I want to have that option. I don't want to be trapped at 200 or zero paycheck to paycheck, right? This helps us make our owners be able to have the business work for them, not for it. No longer are the 40, 60, 80 hours suffering of honor, I call it, right? Let's stop the cycle. So, there's two things I'd like you to do. One of them is send an email, and what I want you to do is tell us a date that you want to retire and how much you want to retire with. And what we'll do periodically is check in with you and say, hey, accountability police, how are you doing towards it? How are your clients doing towards it? Pick a few clients, ask them, bring it out there, and let's have those discussions, right? The second thing I'm going to ask you is part of the EOS structure that we work on is I ask for feedback immediately. How did we do? I want you to grade me. Now, I want you to grade me constructively and how I could have done better so that next time I can disseminate the information better to folks like you, right? So 1 would be good food, get this idiot off the stage and never talk again. Or 10 is, this was very insightful, I really liked it, and I would actually refer somebody to come to this the next time, okay? So informally, I'd just like to ask you, sir, 1 to 10, how we do?
Okay, are you an entrepreneur?
I am.
When did you start and how did you start?
I started 3 years ago as a solopreneur, and then I started really building my business this year.
And how many people have you actually gotten to the point where they're successful instead of just you?
14.
Okay, then how many companies have you had in the last, say, 5 years, 10x your business and so on?
None.
What?
We're exiting our first one.
So you're just getting warmed up.
Just getting warmed up.
It's about a 5.
A 5? Okay. A 5? How could I have done better?
I think maybe a little bit more stories and then this kind of relatability, because I like the 4 legs and then kind of the team aspect, but maybe explaining it more in a story form. I would say that maybe that would relate to different.
Thank you.
I would say a 7 for me, just because I'm barely starting off as a small business, but it was very informative for me.
Excellent. And what would have made it a 10?
I would say more stories. And
More stories?
more relatable, just because this is very new to me. So just knowing a little bit more, if it was a basics kind of thing.
Perfect. Thank you.
I would say 7 as well, just because it is my first time being a small business owner as well, and just kind of off of them with the same more stories.
Okay. Thank you.